This is episode 103 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Joel Friedland. Joel is the co-founder of Brit Properties, and as an industrial real estate broker and owner, Joel has secured over 2,000 industrial property leases and sales, totaling over $250 million in acquisitions. Joel, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, it is great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too, and good to connect. And I'm really excited to talk about industrial real estate. And I wonder if we can start here. Do you think that industrial real estate as a whole is one of, if not the most undervalued asset, especially given what's out there about real estate investing?
Well, right now, I would say it's anything but undervalued.
Okay.
Interestingly, the market has been red hot for the last 4 years. Just before COVID, industrial was just going crazy. Values, give you an example. We're syndicators. We own about 20 properties, and property that we owned in a town here called Elmhurst, which is right near O'Hare Airport, 20,000 square foot industrial building. In 2019, I saw comps in the neighborhood of similar size buildings being sold, and they were right in the neighborhood of about $60 a foot. And today, the same building's $120 to $150 a square foot. It's more than doubled in 4 years.
So growing up, were you interested in real estate? And then how did you eventually get interested in real estate as a...
Do you remember that TV show, This Old House?
Of course, Bob Vila.
So I used to love that. And I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to one day get in the business of buying houses. I graduated from college and I wanted to get into real estate, thinking that residential was the thing to do and that Bob Vila was my hero. and I, quite by accident, met a guy who was 60 something years old that owned a portfolio of 80 industrial buildings.
Okay.
And I met with him on a Tuesday and I started working there on Wednesday.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So I didn't even know what industrial was, but someone introduced me to him, and then he introduced me to his sons and his daughter who were running the company for him, and they became my mentors. And so, yeah, I loved real estate even as a kid. And I took classes at Michigan in real estate law.
Okay.
Yeah, all kinds of other real estate related. I even took a botany class because of landscaping.
Yeah. Well, when growing up, was real estate a thing for your family at all? Was there something that in college you just thought like, hey, that could be something for later or as a full career?
No, I grew up in a family where my parents were therapists. My dad was a career counselor and my mother had a private practice.
Okay.
Worked with people, normal people with normal problems, depression, anxiety, not liking what they were doing in life, not liking their job, things like that, family problems, marital problems. And so my family business was really helping people with their mental health. And for me, I saw it as a really great thing to do, but not for me. So I went straight into real estate. And today I think I would have enjoyed being in the family business and being a therapist, because I've had so many cycles and ups and downs and marriage and kids and all the things that we go through.
Yeah.
And now I feel like in the second half of life, I'm more, I would say, self-aware. And so real estate's great. And it was a good thing for me to do. And I'm going to continue doing it until I can't do it anymore. But I really enjoy the kinds of things that I know you like. I like, self-reflection. I like meditation.
Yeah.
I like the kinds of things that are sort of like deeper thought kind of things.
What do you think was the one thing that helped you just quickly turn that mindset, going from the couch behind you and then saying like, okay, I really have to turn this in a different direction?
Combination of things. I went for counseling. So therapy, getting back to what my parents did for some medications, which I needed to come out of the sort of the downward cycle of being in a very bad place mentally. Meditation. I went to a class at the local library that was put on by a guy named Om Jahari. OM was his first name, from India. And it was a group of people that had gone through some real tough trauma. Really close friends of mine went to this with me, and it was a group. And Om taught us multiple ways of looking at meditation and how to do it. And it became a major practice in my life. And then in addition, really working the 12 steps. The 12 steps of recovery are a program that forces you to look at who you are and to become more spiritual and more self-aware to make decisions as to how to have relationships with other people that are more meaningful, and how to really find gratitude and joy in everyday things.
Yeah, I think that one of the tenets of the 12 steps is making amends, and I feel like you can't really do that unless you're self-aware because the other person will know. And I think that's like kind of the way through is figuring out, okay, maybe that's the thing to get you to the other side. One more thing that you said that I think is really interesting that we've been talking about, it's that compulsive gambler thing. I've always looked at it as like, I felt like some people weren't investing, they were becoming collectors, obsessive collectors, like collectors of art who can't stop. It's the same philosophy. And it's why I get aggravated with people who are always counting doors. Like the social media is putting the pressure on for people to say, I have 200 doors. And then I ask, well, how many do you own outright? Because, if you own 1%, you don't own a door. You own 1% of a door. And I think that's the collective culture that hopefully we can get people to look, around. And definitely your journey would shine some light on that as well. Have you found that now? I mean, the industrial is a different sector where I don't feel like there's as many people that would be celebrating doors because they're just not going to see as much on social. But like you said, it's a very much growing industry, so people can get bowled over with that there as well.
Yeah, I agree that people who talk about all the doors they own, very often they just own doorknobs.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly. Great.
and as far as how we measure, the metric in industrial is square footage. So there are very large industrial real estate REITs and industrial real estate funds that own tens of millions of square feet, and that's what they talk about. I don't look at it that way. I look at the buildings that we own, why we own them, and how we celebrate them building by building.
Hmm.
Who our tenant is and how lucky we are to have a particular manufacturer in this building or that building, and the relationship between ourselves and the tenants and our relationships between ourselves and our investors. And interestingly, from doing this 12-step program, I have determined that for me, being as risk averse as I have to be mentally healthy, I primarily do all cash deals with no mortgages. And that happens to be a very difficult thing to do because it impedes my ability to be a collector.
Yeah.
I can't collect as much if I'm buying less, because if you're getting an 80% mortgage on a $5 million property, it's $4 million. If I do an all cash deal, I have to bring in $5 million of equity between myself and my investors.
Yeah.
And I'd rather say we have one incredibly great deal with a deep foundation of safety. And our tenant is Steiner Industries, who makes safety products for the welding industry. And they've been in the building for 25 years.
Yeah.
That to me is what matters, not how many of those, but how many good ones, one by one by one.
Yeah, I was actually when you were talking about the original connotation to gambling, I was thinking about leverage in general because I think leverage makes it easy to become addicted to collecting real estate. Especially like 2008, the Big Short happened, everything was available to too many people. So this is a really interesting philosophy, but in order to be doing it this way, you have to be good at building relationships so you have the access to the funds and trusted individuals that you then kind of, share that compliance with, right?
Yeah. And in fact, I share my strategic philosophy with my investors, and either they like it or they hate it. Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's trusted number 2 partner, who recently died at age 90.
Yeah, just passed away. Yeah.
He said, just don't do silly things and you won't lose your money. And he said the 3 things that you should not do are liquor, ladies, and leverage. That's his quote.
It's great.
He needed to add and gambling. That's the one thing he left off his list because he probably didn't understand how that works.
Yeah.
Unless you know somebody that's got the addiction and the compulsion, you really don't understand how their mind works. And once you figure out who they are, it's a really easy thing to understand. It's dopamine. It's a dopamine hit.
Oh yeah.
Bam, dopamine. Buy a building. Take the risk. We're going to double our money. We're going to make a 15, 20% return. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. Addiction, addiction, addiction.
Yeah.
And I have a story that's a sad story that drove it home to me. A friend of mine was visiting her son in college at the University of Illinois. We were visiting our son. They were roommates. And her dad was 80 and had just done a really big real estate deal and put almost all of his money into it and borrowed a lot. And that was in 2007. And in 2008, he lost it and more or less was destitute and had to move in with his daughter and son-in-law because he couldn't afford to even live in an apartment. And I looked at that and I said, when you don't diversify and you put all your money into one thing and you have a lot of debt, that's gambling. And that's when it sort of hit